This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It's episode number 7. I'm Tom Albano, along with Nick Federa. Nick, I want to start today's episode with a quote.
Yes.
I want to start with a quote from the great Yogi Berra. It ain't over till it's over.
And it is indeed over, unfortunately. Football season has now come and gone, and hate to say it, folks, but the bad guys won.
I was going to say, well, it's an appropriate expression for what happened at the Super Bowl.
It is, and for those of you who don't know or might have forgotten about the game already, it's...
Or you slept under a rock for the past, I don't know how long.
You could have been under a rock for 6 months. We don't know if we're...
We don't know your story.
Maybe our audience is a bunch of hermits. Somehow they managed to find internet connection in a damp cave somewhere, and maybe they're just waking up from under the rock going, what's going on?
I mean, I can barely find any good internet connection here where I am.
Exactly. But it was a 34-28 victory for the Patriots over the Atlanta Falcons in the first overtime period in Super Bowl history, and
it took us more than 50 Super Bowls to get in overtime.
Amazing, isn't it? I actually did not know that stat.
Neither did I.
But again, I know last week I picked the Patriots to win. Actually, I picked the Patriots to win by 7, didn't I?
Yes. They won by 6.
But they won by 6.
And I said the Falcons were going to win 35-32. I wasn't far off on the score. It's just the wrong team.
No, you said it was going to be a high-scoring game, and it ended up being like that.
Originally, it wasn't, though.
Originally, it wasn't. Originally, it was a blowout, and...
Not even that. But, originally, after the first quarter was 0-0, it was like, so much for a high-scoring game.
Because after the pick 6, everybody likes to say, even I was guilty of saying this in class the other day, where I knew it was going to happen. I didn't. I'm fully ready to admit that I was full of it, and I had no idea what was going.
I was going to say, so you're admitting you're bullshitting it.
Yes. I am a Class A bullshit artist, and I'm
okay. I'm going to link this podcast to our professor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Put me in the doghouse. Put me in the doghouse with him. I don't need
that. And seriously, what the hell happened? I mean, Matt Ryan and the Falcons just seemed to be in control so much, and then the fourth quarter happened.
Yeah, you could say, but honestly though, after the pick 6 by Alfred in the second quarter, I felt like I had actually tweeted, because we were live tweeting during the game,
right?
That I'd never seen Brady this off his rhythm, which is true.
Right, it's just true.
But somehow the slippery son of a bitch managed to get his rhythm when coming into the third quarter, and just from the third quarter on, you felt like the Falcons could not get out of their own way.
I mean, everyone talks about how it was a tale of two halves, because technically the Patriots did have the score in the third quarter, but I mean, even then, I would say more it was the fourth quarter, because the thing still looked bleak in the third quarter, because they were down by almost 25, because it was the 28-3. They got the touchdown, and then Gostkowski, what the fucking hell? How did he miss that extra point?
Mr. Automatic all of a sudden gets the yips, and I just... It was almost like things that you absolutely did not expect to happen, happened.
Right.
It possible became reality.
That's why I was thinking, it was pretty much done after that, because it's like, if Gostkowski, you're Mr. Perfect, can't even convert an extra point, it's like, what else could go wrong? Everything was going wrong for the Patriots. Which begs
the question, was this really, the burning question that's been on both of our minds is, Is this... Did the Patriots win this game, or did the Falcons lose this game?
We did have a poll up for this. Let me check the results of that poll. And according to our poll, once again, it's about 60 to 40. 60% of people say it was the Falcons losing it, as compared to about the rest of about 40% of people who said it was the Patriots winning.
Honestly, I think I would have to agree with him, because it wasn't only the egregious holding penalties that were a part of the game, really from the third quarter, fourth quarter on. It was really coaching blunders, and I felt like they had it. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
I feel like pretty much. I feel like. Do you remember the old ESPN series, Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame?
Yes.
I feel like as you could say the Falcons blow it, but at the same time you can do a 5 reasons you can't blame the Falcons for losing the Super Bowl. It's like you have it on both ends, basically.
Then again, if I was a Falcons fan, I would probably be cursing the unfeeling God that hath wrought this upon me. But honestly, I'd be a lot more pissed off if I was a Falcons fan, but honestly, I really didn't have a dog in this fight other than,
not wanting Brady to win.
Other than hating the Patriots.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to think. Let's think of the factors that came into this. I'd say number one were the holding penalties. Because I remember there was like a consecutive string, and what was it, like the third quarter? I remember watching the game with my family, and we had flipped to something else just for a second. I guess it was in a commercial break or something, or just to see something funny was going on. And I remember checking my phone, and I'm like, oh, another holding penalty. And it was like the third one in a row. It's like, how do you... I mean, this is the Super Bowl. How, within the same drive, it's like different sets of downs, 3 consecutive sets of downs, do you get 3 holding penalties and you give Patriots new life 3 times in a row? I don't get it.
And it wasn't necessarily what you see with a lot of holding penalties. It's usually kind of ticky-tack bullshit. But in this case, it was not. It was blatantly holding the arm. It was blatantly holding the jersey. It's like, you can't fake that. You can't argue with the ref saying, I didn't do it. I don't get it. It's, see, this also goes back to something that I've been thinking about a lot since the game ended on Sunday. It felt like the Falcons were gassed going into the fourth quarter.
I was going to say, and that leads right into, the defense of the Atlanta Falcons spent so much time on the field that basically, they're tired, and you have a tired defense going against Tom Brady with time still left on the clock. And I think we've learned this postseason, when you play Tom Brady or when you play Aaron Rodgers and you leave time on the clock, you're screwed.
He will pull a miracle from out of his ass, and he will make it. He will make it rain sunshine and lollipops. I don't understand how this is possible, but it happens.
I think the other thing we got to talk about, another reason that they lost, they got greedy and went for a big yardage when they didn't need to in the last quarter. Yeah.
And how do you not run the ball? How do you not run the ball?
And then Matt Ryan got sacked multiple times.
He did, and it felt like, they were sacking Brady a lot. They were really knocking him around.
That's the thing. In the first 3 quarters, the defense was knocking Brady around so badly. I'm like, this is so unlike Tom Brady. This is so... Either that or the Falcons' defense was just so good, but then they got worn out. And then when the Atlanta offensive line came on, for some reason they were just so weak. Their blocking game was like F grade, and Matt Ryan paid the price for it. He had a bad fumble during one part, sacked multiple times and lost yardage, especially in that last play before the Patriots tied the game.
And your wideout coverage sucked on these short passes.
Correct.
Because they might have been able to cover the deep ball, but it was almost like death by 1,000 cuts, where 3 yards here, 5 yards here, 7 yards here. There wasn't the big bomb. It
was the Patriots system. It was the Patriots systematically, bit by bit, breaking them down.
That's actually a pretty good word to describe it, systematic, because it is efficient in its deviousness. It is.
They weren't doing anything big. It was just bit by bit by bit. They were breaking off pieces until there was no more Falcons.
It's diabolical, isn't it?
It is. And you know what's sad? We're all going to remember the Edelman catch. We're not going to remember the Jones catch just because the Patriots came from behind.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have to give the Patriots credit. I mean, that catch was unbelievable for one.
But there's a but in there.
But I feel like the Falcons had the game and blew it.
See, here's the thing. Of course these guys would fucking come up with their own version of a Tyree catch. Of course that would happen. Because
I mean, it feels weird being on the other end of it. Let's say that. It feels weird being on the other end of the compliment.
And you know, the Falcons weren't my team, so I can't really say I'm on the other end of it, but
right.
Being a Giants fan, I pretty much worship at the altar of that catch. I believe it's one of the best catches I have ever seen in my life.
But we look at it, and it's like, oh, so this is what the Patriots fans felt.
Yes. Although although the Edelman catch was impressive. And
the Jones catch was too, without a doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt. I still think the Tyree catch was harder.
Of course we will think that because we're Giants fans.
I say that, but look at the catch empirically. And excuse my homerism here for a minute, folks.
Okay.
But there were so many other elements of that catch, of that play itself, that could have collapsed at any moment. Eli got away from being sacked somehow, with his jersey being tugged on, managed to still throw it, and then Tyree pinned the catch against his helmet with two.
As he was brought down to the ground,
trying to pull him down to the ground.
I mean, that is a fair point, and I will argue with that. I will say Tyree better catch. One more thing I want to talk about. Oh yeah, basically my last word on this. I will give the Patriots credit because I feel like this is one of those games where both the Patriots have to improve in their offensive game in the last quarter, and the Falcons offense has to choke. So it's like, you know, you have to have it on both ends. So I can see both each having a degree of fault, quote unquote. Yeah. Even though Patriots, secondly, you can't really call that fault. So each has their own kind of, as I said, fault. Even though that might not be the right word for it in this comeback, but without a doubt, I mean, I give props to the Patriots, but it's just Falcons. What the hell happened?
Exactly, and I honestly must, at this point, give a fair warning to Patriots fans. It's more of not necessarily an admonishment, more of a friendly 2 cents worth of advice. Savor this. Savor every last bit of it. Because when those two, Brady and Belichick, go riding out of town, the Patriots will suck again.
Actually, let's follow up with that additional final word. Where does this win put Brady and Belichick in the history books?
The GOAT. You literally have no legs to stand on anymore with him not being the GOAT. The great, and I honestly, as a Giants fan, you must give props where props are due. Let's just see reality here. No other player-coach tandem has ever done this. No quarterback has ever won 5 Super Bowls.
Right. I mean, for Brady, if I did like a GOAT admission, I would say he'd be more like Darth Vader, because it's like, I hate to have to say it.
Yes, he is. He's the Sith Lord of football.
Pretty much. But Belichick, I will actually give props to. I mean, I think I said this in class. When you enter the regular season without your historic quarterback, and your backup quarterback during those 4 games goes down, you have to go to the third string, and everyone thinks you're going to finish like 1-3 or 0-4 before Brady returns, and you finish 3-1, and then Brady comes back and takes you to the Super Bowl and everything. Classic Tom Brady. I think that just has to go to the coaching ability of Bill Belichick. I feel like he will go down as this generation's Vince Lombardi.
And some would even argue that he's better than Vince Lombardi, although
I don't know if I'll give him that, but I will say he is this generation's.
Oh, yes. I mean, football is basically a game of generations. I don't necessarily like comparing other players to other players in different generations.
It's like why you can't compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan in the NBA.
Because it's different generations.
Right.
Different classes of player moves in, the game changes because it necessarily has to. Because the game adapts. The game adapts to the people that are playing in it. And coaching styles were completely different now than they were in the 60s and the 70s when Lombardi was coaching.
Football was a different game. I mean, Super Bowl was just barely born at that point.
Exactly, and people used to think that the AFL had most of the talent.
And then the NFL would constantly prove them wrong after the first 2 Super Bowls, and then hello Jets beat the Colts.
And it's the last one you'll see for a while.
Anyways,
sorry, Jets fans.
Let's take this next 6-7 minutes. Let's talk about a quick segment here. Let's talk about pop culture at the Super Bowl. I mean, we had Lady Gaga's halftime show, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. We did do a poll on that too, by the way. We asked people right after it ended. We asked, how did you feel about the halftime show? Let me bring up the results of that. But Nick, first, what was your thoughts on the halftime show?
I liked it. I'm not really that big a fan of Lady Gaga. I respect the hell out of her because, honestly, I do believe there's talent there. And even though I do have the musical taste of someone 50, 60 years old, I respect talent when talent is due because I understand I happen to love her voice. I happen to love her piano playing. That said.
But like I said, these were more of her hits. And when she was big was 2010, 2011. This wasn't any of her new stuff. This was stuff everybody knew her for.
Well, she's not in the weird art phase of her career anymore.
Right.
She's not wearing cylindrical objects on her head when she goes up.
Or meat dresses.
Yeah. Oh God, I forgot about the meat dress.
So here were the results of that poll. 56% actually said they loved it. 11% just said like. 17% said they hated it full out, and then the other 17% just had no care. They didn't give a fuck whatsoever.
Yeah, and you know what? The inverse is I know people. In fact, I was sharing a Super Bowl party with these people that just watched the game just to see the halftime show and just tuned out for everything else.
Right. I mean, we discussed this, I think, last week when we were talking about Super Bowl commercials. There's a portion of your audience that tunes in for the commercials and the halftime show, and that's it. That's what also gives the Super Bowl, however, some pop culture topic into it.
And, knowing what we know about, meeting Arthur Lewis and kind of getting a last semester and getting a glimpse of the insane, frankly, amount of work that goes into these, I have a new respect for.
Right, I was just going to say, Lewis, I think he said something, it was like between 15 and 20 seconds, they'll set a stage up, which originally the first time they run through and practice it, it'll take like 2 hours. For a stage like they pulled with Lady Gaga, that's unbelievable how they can pull it up in like at most 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah, which is insane. But it seems to me, at least, that I don't think... See, everybody thought that Lady Gaga was going to get political. Because, there was always, what's she going to do? What's she going to say? Because they thought she was going to basically pull a Beyonce and, send people into a tizzy for the next week or so. I think it was fairly, what's the word I should use? Restraint. restrained his movement.
It didn't have anything to do with it, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and, I think, although, me personally, I would have said something, but I honestly, knowing that she's pretty much under the thumb of the NFL, and the NFL hates offending anybody.
We talked about that last week, too.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I can understand why she did what she did.
I will say the same thing what I told you in class. If anybody thought her saying, what was it? She sang "God Bless America," I think it was, and then she sang "This Land Is Your Land." If anybody thought that had any political ideologies to do with that, is a moron, fucking moron.
Well, "This Land Is Your Land" is actually very political. She just didn't sing the rest of the song.
Right, but I think she was doing it more of bringing the country together.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the purpose behind it.
That's what it was. I mean, it's just, you know who Senator Marco Rubio is, right?
Yes, I do.
He actually posted a Facebook status the other day, and apparently a couple of my friends were tweeting it, and one of my Facebook friends, which is actually one of my old teachers from high school, said, "I don't care what side of the fence you're on, this is all too true." And it was the post Rubio was talking about, like, how all the violence in this country and how everybody's at extremes and at each other's throats. It's like what I talked about last week. It's pretty much what I said. You have liberals and you have conservatives. That's it. This country's done with politics at this point. A moderate politics.
It's amazing that we're doing this kind of reading into the Super Bowl halftime show.
Welcome to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network, Nick.
It's what we do here.
Let's also talk about commercials. They sucked.
They did. They, I appreciate, kind of sticking it to the man, let's say. But, I appreciate the funny ones. I love Super Bowl commercials that are actually fucking funny. And they weren't this year. Not really.
Like, I get a couple of them have to have statements because everyone has to make a statement these days. But, I mean, come on. When I was little, what made the Super Bowl commercial good for me was that every single one of them was either hilarious or memorable in some other way. Nothing worked this year. Okay, I can't say nothing. There were some good ones. I think I even mentioned in our preview of the commercials, the Skittles one. It wasn't overly funny, but it was funny enough that you remember it.
The Bush commercial.
Yeah. Oh, that was stupid. I disagree.
I laughed. Just to me, I laughed.
No, I don't. I'd say I disagree. That was stupid funny, and I don't have too much of a bone for stupid funny anymore.
So what were the other ones?
What's the movie with The Rock? They're gonna have like Baywatch. I think it was. Was it the Baywatch movie?
Yeah, Baywatch.
I thought that was funny, but I just think The Rock is funny in general. He's hilarious.
Yeah. Isn't gonna make me go see the movie.
Right, but
yeah,
I still think he's a hell of an actor and such.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy.
That was good. That was all right. We had the Snickers live commercial. I think it was more WTF is what that was.
That was underwhelming because I was thinking they were going to do something so crazy that it could only be done live. And shame on me for thinking this, but it was basically just a Western motif with Adam Driver walking out in cowboy regalia and the set blowing up around him.
Right. Everything went wrong. But the thing was, as I said, it just happened so suddenly. You didn't realize that it was essentially the live commercial going on until the Snickers portion of it hit.
Honestly, just for the sheer technical work that had to go in, I'd love to see how they made that commercial.
Same here. But, other than those 5 that we mentioned, I thought everything else was either not memorable or flat out sucked.
And the thing is, you could tell how successful a Super Bowl ad is when they show it after the Super Bowl.
Right.
Usually they would show a lot of them, but here we were almost a week from the Super Bowl, and I really haven't seen any of the other ads again.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe the Baywatch I've seen. The Skittles one I saw beforehand. I saw a couple of car commercials beforehand, too.
Getting to see the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 trailer was very welcome.
Darren, I forgot about that. That was good, too. That was really good. I liked the first movie. I want to see the second.
Well, I'm a gigantic nerd, so I can't be any more pumped for this movie than I already am. And
now you have the opinion of someone else, too, who agrees with you there.
I may or may not have a couple of Guardians of the Galaxy comic books on my dresser right now as we speak, so...
All right.
Not to nerd out too much.
Well, also, Dave Bautista was funny as Drax.
Still, you as a wrestling fan, you should eat that up.
Yeah, I was so curious as to see how he would pull that off, and in the first movie, I thought he was fantastic. I want to see him again in the sequel.
And you know what? I appreciate Disney for bringing that out because it made the Super Bowl more tolerable.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast for the Undetermined Podcast Network. Nick, let's go into the other big story of this week, one for the NBA. And let's play the circus music, because the circus that is the New York Knicks is continuing.
Yep. Charles Oakley. Oh, boy.
You think things can't get any worse for the Knicks. We talked about that last time with the melodrama and the All-Star Game snubs and everything like that. It got worse.
And then this flaming bag of horse shit gets dropped on our doorstep and we're expected to stomp it out.
I don't want to stomp this out.
For those of you, context is necessary. For those of you who do not know, ex-Knicks player, really a very, very good Knicks player from the 80s and the 90s, right?
Right, especially from the 90s NBA Finals teams with Patrick Ewing.
Charles Oakley decides to go to the game. Now, it was Knicks Clippers, I think, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes, because that was the game that was on ESPN, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there was Knicks Clippers.
Now, there are two sides to this story. The Knicks side of the story would have you believe that Charles Oakley was arguing or getting belligerent with Jim Dolan, the owner of the Knicks, who happened to be there and picking fights with fans, and they asked him to leave. He did not, so they dragged him out by his collar. Charles Oakley's version of the story is more, how shall I put this? I didn't do anything wrong. I was just, what exactly did he say he was doing?
It was something like he wanted to just see the game or something.
Yeah, and he didn't do anything.
Right.
I choose to believe that, God knows I hate Jim Dolan, so I'm kind of siding with Oakley that this is really an overreaction.
Here's what I think. I know he's like, I didn't do anything or such. If security gets involved, more than likely something happens. That's what I would think normally. So I do think maybe he did do something, but something else must have happened. Something that's being, restrained. Because after that, not only do you have everybody, like all the fans, rallying up a little support for Oakley, you have NBA players coming out for Oakley. You have LeBron James ending a press conference where he wrote out a statement and it ended with Oakley for president. And then at the Rangers game last night or 2 nights ago, you had
They started a chant.
Free Oakley. Right. So that... Also, I should point out, the Rangers, the other team that Dolan is as an owner of.
He's got his grubby little mitts on.
Right. So it begs me to believe that I think Oakley did do something, maybe a little something confrontational, but at the same time, I feel like there's more to this story than what's being let out, is what I'm saying.
And the statement that the Knicks released, actually, was horrifically petty. And
right, with that too. That also led me to believe something was up. And like Oakley, there's a little something over, the Knicks are overcompensating for something, essentially.
Of course they're overcompensating for something. They suck. It's a sleight of hand tactic.
Right, but I mean, this is just that
one hand tactic. You don't realize that this hand is mangled, but then the other hand punches you in the face, so you don't notice the other mangled hand.
I mean, like I said, you had all these NBA players coming out for Oakley, and then you had, you had the petty statement, and now within the last little more than maybe 24 hours, we have learned that the head security guy...
The head of security has been canned, basically.
Right.
And now, as of about 3:30 p.m. on Friday, Charles Oakley is no longer allowed at MSG.
And when the press media went to the Knicks for a comment, and MSG for comment and stuff, they essentially gave them the cold shoulder and said, we don't talk about fired employees, basically.
Yeah, they're basically taking all the moves of the playbook of the of Soviet Russia media strategy.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's just call a spade here, Tom. It is honestly...
Like I said, I feel like there's more than the public is being let know.
I don't think it's necessarily Oakley being ungrateful, though. I think
right.
The guy always pays his way. He loves the team.
Oh no, I'm not talking about Oakley doing something. I know maybe he did. What I'm saying is maybe he did a little something that we don't know, but at the same time, the Knicks probably did an overreaction that also we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying there's missing puzzle pieces to this puzzle. This is a huge jigsaw puzzle, and it's filled with 50 feet of crap because the Knicks suck.
And do you know what, when you put all the jigsaw pieces together, do you know what the image forms?
It's a piece of shit.
No, it's actually Jim Dolan giving you the finger.
Why not both?
And he's standing next to a huge pile of shit.
Exactly, like I said.
Pointing it out. He's giving you the finger with one hand, and he's beholding the mountain of shit with the other hand.
And the mountain of shit has the Knicks logo on it.
Exactly.
But my God, this, either way that you look at this, it's a PR nightmare for the Knicks.
Oh, without a doubt. This is exactly what you do not do. We could ask a bunch of public relations majors at Hofstra, I guarantee, and even the professors would say, no.
Especially after that petty press release.
It just shows that James Dolan is a very, very vindictive man, and no subordinate shall survive his wrath.
I feel like if Dolan continues this, I seriously just wish they could do this right now, but I know they're going to need to do a lot more. If he goes on the path that he continues on, they have to do some sort of, vote of confidence and say, no, we don't have any confidence in Dolan as an owner, as running operations.
I wish they would try that, honestly. I mean, they did that with, we used to own the Clippers, the
racist guy.
Yeah.
Donald Sterling.
I mean, what he did was miles and miles worse than what Dolan has done, but you kind of wish that they would still do the no confidence vote anyway.
I really wish they did. I mean, at this point, I think we spoke about this maybe not last week, 2 weeks ago as well. It's like, the Knicks are at the point where they have so much talent on the team. They have so much potential, and they post a record like they're posting right now. If you can't win with this team, then what's the point? It's just going to be years and years more of suckiness.
This franchise is going to become the bug zapper of the NFL. No one wants to go near it because they will get shocked.
And I mean, I get it. It's still New York. It's still basketball. It's still going to be big. It's not going to put the Knicks in any trouble of, like, relocation or anything. But it's like, at this point, you know, why is there any more reason to be a fan? I'm sorry for saying that, but why?
You support the team no matter what. I mean, you know, you're a Ranger fan.
Right. Well, keep in mind, I'm not as big as on the NBA as I am on the other leagues.
Yeah, but take my brother, for instance. He's a Ranger fan, and he was a Ranger fan for a long time, and he stuck to the team through a lot of lean years. A lot of really, really embarrassing lean years.
But, I mean, for the Knicks, this is not, you know... We're going on near 15 years now of bad. We're going on near 15 years where it's like maybe 12, 13 of them were bad years.
It's a shame. It really is, because, you know, this is a big media market. This should be one of the premier franchises in the NBA. And the fact that the Knicks just turned into a laughingstock, but they would have the equivalent of setting a fire to distract us while we don't realize that our house is getting robbed is beyond me. I can't even put into words what is transpiring here.
And the worst part is, like, I've been seeing a couple of Knicks games recently, and it's like they do good, but essentially they are the Atlanta Falcons of just the NBA regular season. They always find a way to fucking choke.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, speaking of horrible owners,
here we go. I actually just learned about this story this morning. So, Nick, take it away.
Yes, Jeffrey Loria, shit-giving extraordinaire. The man who ran the Montreal Expos into the ground and then in 2002 purchased the Marlins, then known as the Florida Marlins, for $158 million, has decided, while a handshake agreement, you can't see my hands, but I'm doing an air quote here, to sell the team for an estimated, now bear with me here, you may want to hang on to something.
Okay.
$1.6 billion. He's going to sell this team for $1.6 billion. Now,
Nick, I didn't even know the Marlins were that much.
Which leads to a couple of questions. First of all, it's despicable that this man can basically just essentially what he did was basically take over for a plane, decide, you know what, I'm going to pilot this plane, and then proceed to fucking bury it, crash it into the ground, and then walk away with nary a scratch and a fatter wallet. It's abhorrent. It really is. And the fact that this man has done more to screw the residents of Miami more than global warming and alligators is amazing to me. He stuck them with a stadium they didn't want, that is always empty, and they're still paying for it, and they'll be paying for it for the rest of, well, recorded human history, let's say. And I'm not. I want to repeat that. I am not a Marlins fan by any conceivable stretch of the imagination. However, they do have good players on that team. They can be good. I just hate it when these crooks, that's the best way to put it, snake oil salesmen, charlatans, no matter which term you want to use. I can't stand it when these guys get to do a shitty job and then walk away all the richer.
Welcome to the world of business, Nick. First of all, $1.6 billion on a handshake agreement. Can I ask you something?
Hmm?
Who the fuck agrees to a handshake agreement in a deal this big? Seriously.
You know what? It might be a handshake agreement with a guy who has no hands.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He might be going to an amputee ward and looking to shake.
Especially because keep in mind, since this is a handshake agreement, there's no written contract, which means at any point this deal could be dead in the water.
Yes, indeed. There are many different logistical and legal hurdles to clear before this happens. However,
I wish I didn't hear about this morning, so I could call up a law expert and just bring him on the show.
Yeah, we need to see if we can get some legal and financial experts to guest here on the podcast.
Who can actually explain this to us?
That'd be a good idea.
Especially those who can explain this to us in human terms.
Yeah, because God knows we're not math majors. That's why we went back to doing journalism, because we don't know math. But the funny thing is, the most interesting part, at least of that the article that I read, about this story, was that the $1.6 billion, I mean, I can't even say that figure with a straight face, is apparently Lauria's own estimate for his team. So it may actually end up being significantly less than $1.6 billion. Mm-hmm. So he's inflating this shit he's inflating it like a balloon.
The Marlins, though, since their inception in 1993, they have had a history of terrible behind-the-scenes moves. The 2 World Series that they've won, 1997 and 2003, they both won it, both as the NL wildcard team. And then the year after that, and 2 years after that, in both circumstances, all those great players that they had, goodbye, 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 goodbye.
Exactly.
And they just dumped a team that had so much success, not once, but twice, within the span of 10 years.
And kiddies, do you remember when they signed Jose Reyes and Mark Burley?
Oh my God, that 2012 team too. Now that you're mentioning that, they had all the talent. They were essentially trying to pull, and they moved to. That was when they moved from Florida. I mean, they did the Florida Marlins, and they became the Miami Marlins officially. And it was like they were trying to pull essentially, but the Heat had just pulled, where they were going to bring in all this big talent and they were going to become a rising team at the time. Because at the time, that was when LeBron, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, they were the big three in Miami.
Interest in Miami as a premier sports destination.
Exactly. So it was like they were trying to recreate that same success in the MLB. It fucking flopped.
And then Lauria takes that goodwill and then proceeds to lower his pantaloons and befoul that goodwill in the eyes of American sports fans everywhere. And I'm not talking about slight defoulment. I'm talking about hazmat suit.
Jeez.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, on the other hand of things, you have to admit, there are probably Marlins fans who are probably very, very happy that Lauria is probably going away.
Yeah, I can see that. I absolutely can see that. God knows I wish it would happen with Dolan, but...
Oh, right. We wish that would happen with Dolan.
Yeah. I'm
using an article from a site called HUGE, where I internet. So I actually... This is someone I know who wrote this article, and they actually included some social media components, so I do actually have some tweets up from other sources. Let's see, we have Dan Sharpin on Twitter states, I guess this is a fan, states, "Parade in Miami if Lauria sells the Marlins. I'll bring the pots and pans."
Yes.
The fake ESPN tweets, "The Marlins are being sold for $1.6 billion. That's $1.59 billion too much." I told you, Nick. I freaking told you. I didn't know the Marlins were worth that much.
Exactly.
And then Carl P. Manson on Twitter, #LoserLauria. who robbed Miami for 10 years, finally released his grip on the city so they can make the Marlins great again. Hashtag Marlins, hashtag MIA. I mean, so I can see both ends of it. I can see, oh, this is a terrible deal. I mean, you're selling this team for all this money that it's not worth. And, you know, it's a handshake agreement. Why the hell is this a handshake agreement when this is something that should be written down and negotiated contract-wise, written-wise? But at the same time, it's like so much success. It's like Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Lauria's finally getting out of there.
And this team can be good. And I want it to be good because, you know, they have great players. D. Gordon, Giancarlo Stanton. They've been through a lot with, you know, Jose Fernandez tragically dying, unfortunately. And this team deserves a win, and it's, well, a literal and figurative win. And I think it's about high time they got one.
Yeah, it kind of should be their time now. I mean...
but it begs the question.
Okay.
It begs the question. And I put it to you, what is it that makes what separates a good sports owner from a bad sports owner?
Whew, that is a good question. I mean, it's hard for me to think as to why, because we grew up, at least you're a Yankees fan too. So
yeah, we both
grew up with such a unique owner in George Steinbrenner.
And he did some shady shit. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Right. I think an owner. Actually, I'm not even going to think of just an owner. I'm going to think like an owner and GM both ways. You need to have one eye. You need to have three eyes, essentially. You need to have one eye on your past. You need to have one eye on the current state of the baseball, the playing, the winning record, losing record. You need to have one eye on the business in the current product, and then you need to have another eye in the future. Actually, you're going to need four eyes.
Yeah. And you know what? Do you think... I don't know exactly what the lease agreement was for the new Yankee Stadium. You know if the Steinbrenners are putting up that money or the city's paying?
Let me look that up. Let's see. The Yankee Stadium, $2.3 billion, according to Wikipedia, $2.3 billion stadium built with $1.2 billion in public subsidies.
Ouch. I guess that happens. That happens a lot in sports. And I hate it as much as everybody does, but you know.
It's becoming the common thing now. The taxpayer has to pay for the stadium.
And God knows that the Steinbrenners and the Yankees make enough money where
right.
you can pay for that thing.
But that's the thing. More the reason why you want a successful sports franchise.
Exactly. And
because your money is going to it, you want to be entertained.
And as much as I have my issues with the Steinbrenners, nowhere near the issues that Marlins fans had with Lauria, I really can't imagine a Yankees organization that is not run by a Steinbrenner.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it like CBS who owned the team before the 70s when Steinbrenner took over?
They did. They owned it from the mid...
Primarily their dynasty years.
Yeah. The mid-60s, I think 63 to 75 when he bought the team.
Oh.
And they were cellar dwellers until he actually did buy the team.
True. But I mean, that's the thing. In their glory years, it was CBS and other old school owners. And then Steinbrenner comes in and shakes things up.
See, Yeah. I tend not to think of sports own. There are very few sports owners that are outright evil.
Right.
But
Steinbrenner, it's like two sides of the coin, essentially.
He's an asshole, but the asshole family, but there are assholes, basically.
Oh, it seems like nowadays, in a business, to be a business person, you need to be an asshole.
Yeah, they're downright saints compared to guys like Dan Snyder.
All right. You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast for the Undetermined Podcast Network. For the next 5 minutes or so, we're just going to do some miscellaneous stuff. We're just going to talk about whatever the heck we want. And to start things off, hey, we got pitchers and catchers reporting soon.
Yes, indeedy. Time for baseball, and not a minute too soon.
Yeah, it's about time. Baseball is like that one sport where it's like I can sit down and just watch, just for the beauty of the game. I mentioned this to a couple of friends, but it's like the last few years or so, when it's like late at night and such, like I just turn on MLB Network to watch Dodgers broadcasts, to listen to Vin Scully's voice. That's really all I would do the last few years. Because Vin Scully is one of my favorite commentators, and it's going to be so different to not have him around.
I'd love Vin Scully to read me a bedtime story, wouldn't you?
Well, it's funny. It's because Vin Scully was one of the first baseball voices I remember. Because I remember playing the old MLB 2001, 2002 video games when it was still 989 Sports, before Sony basically took over the whole control. So, I mean, I'm excited. And I think we should make this announcement now. Over the next coming weeks, we're going to be giving you, going division by division, just an outlook as to what this season holds in store for each team in each division, as well as we're going to give you some World Baseball Classic updates.
Yes, the WBC is also upon us, and with the entire other can of worms that implies. It's going to be wall-to-wall baseball, folks. It's going to be great.
I cannot wait to wake up and do my little virtual internship in the morning and such, and then on my TV, there'll probably be like baseball in Japan or something like that. I can't wait for that.
I just hope the campus TV gets yes, because they didn't in Newport. They didn't where I did my undergrad, SUNY Newport.
Well, in the newest campus agreements, they said because there was like a TV deal switch or something, they dropped all the regional sports networks. So there's no yes, there's no SNY.
Oh Christ!
So I'm gonna have to use my Slingbox to watch through my home TV from my computer. Slingbox is a cool product, by the way. Sorry for the product placement.
No, it's okay. Buy Slingbox.
I wasn't going to go that far. Just saying it was a cool
You were
product.
thinking it, Albano. You were thinking it.
Maybe. Speaking of funny, let's talk funny. Let's talk something I recently wrote up on a Flock U site. It's a very funny story. It involves another team from Miami. Actually, one we also talked about, the Miami Heat. Let me bring this up. It's probably the biggest WTF story of this week in terms of the sports world.
Lay it on us, Tom.
Okay. So, there is this gentleman. His name is Nkrumah Akano. Nkrumah. Akano, with 2 Ks. He has placed a lawsuit against the Miami Heat. He is suing the team for the following: discrimination, harassment, assault, and copyright infringement. Do you want to take a guess? The reasoning behind this, Nick?
I'm coming up empty.
Okay. Let me read the official document statement. It's like that little, what's it called? An oath or whatever, name.
Yeah.
And this gentleman is filing a $1 billion lawsuit against the Miami Heat for the said crimes. The Miami Heat will not, he says, this is his quote, the Miami Heat will not let me play for them because I am good looking and they have been copying me and I am copyrighted. That is copyright infringement. Especially Eric Spoelstra. He has been copying and harassing me for the last year and discriminating. And Eric Spoelstra, by the way, in the court document, his name is spelled wrong. It's spelled ERIC.
Is this for real?
This is for freaking real.
You're fucking kidding me, right?
No, I'm not kidding you.
Oh, boy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, frivolous lawsuit.
Nick.
Are you sure this isn't just like an 11-year-old who is supremely well connected in the legal world and knows a lawyer who can draft this for him?
This was an official tweet. This was from David Oval.
Wow. I think that's going to set a record for the shortest amount of time from when a case arrives on the judge's desk to when it is thrown out. It may actually be done within a span of 60 seconds. The judge might not even get past the first 3 lines before he crumples it up and basically shoots it into the waste bin from the 3-point line.
3-point goal for 3-point goal for Judge, whatever his name is.
Yeah, 3-point. Oh, you want to have a basketball career? Yeah, 3 points. Oh no, wait, here's his jumper.
How? I was going to ask you, how long do you think this goes? How long does this lawsuit go before it's thrown out?
Ideally 60 seconds, but knowing the legal system, it'll probably be a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months.
This is fantastic.
Oh, boy.
I don't think we can top anything other than that.
You can't write this stuff.
You can't.
You cannot.
And I think that's a perfect Hollywood-style ending for this episode. I can barely even breathe right now.
He is cracking up, folks. You can't see him, but he is cracking up.
It's just, I still cannot believe this. I still cannot believe this. It's like, what the fuck? Literally.
Sports.
Yes.
Why we do it too.
At sports fans. Some sports fans just will do anything for the almighty dollar.
Exactly.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Like us on Facebook at The Unspoken Podcast, facebook.com/The Unspoken Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Unspoken Podcast. And follow the Undetermined Network as well on social media. Get ready for the Undetermined website. It's coming soon. I can't wait.
It's going to be good.
And yeah, starting next week, we'll be doing a lot of baseball. We'll be covering each division and such on the way through spring training and into the regular season. We got the Grammys on Sunday night, I believe.
Yeah.
I know the Undetermined Network's going to be covering that. I'll be busy watching WWE Elimination Chamber that night.
It's going to be a fun time. Can't wait to see it.
All right. On Tom Alvano and for Nick Videra and everybody else at the Unspoken Podcast and Undetermined Podcast Network, thank you so much for listening in. We'll see you next week for episode 8.
Good night, everybody.